Imagine you are serving with your church's safety ministry on a Sunday morning. The first service has ended, people are leaving the sanctuary, others are standing around talking, and volunteers are prepping for whatever comes next. Maybe Sunday school is getting ready to begin, and maybe another service is scheduled shortly. It feels like a transition period, and because the main service is over, it can also feel like a little bit of downtime. But who is still paying attention? Who is watching the entrances, the hallways, and the parking area? Has everyone mentally relaxed because worship is no longer happening? That is what I want to talk about today.
If God is for me, who's against me? Nobody is. I'm so sick of the...
Welcome to Sanctuary Peacemakers. This is your frontline guide to safety and security inside houses of worship with your host, Unity. Now, let's enter the crucible of our discussion. Welcome back to Sanctuary Peacemakers. On Sunday, July 5th, 2026, an incident occurred at St. John's Lutheran Church in Effingham, Illinois. Before I get into what happened, I want to be careful about how this is discussed. The investigation is still active, and there is a lot that has not been publicly confirmed. I am not going to assign a motive to the man involved, describe him as an attacker, claim that a mass shooting was prevented, or speculate about what might have happened if the situation had unfolded differently. What I want to do is explain what authorities have confirmed and then look at the broader lesson that this incident presents for church safety ministries. According to the Illinois State Police, at approximately 9:27 that Sunday morning, someone identified as church security contacted the Effingham Police Department regarding a suspicious vehicle and a suspicious man inside the church who wanted to speak with the pastor. The official release states that no worship service was taking place at that time. Officers from the Effingham Police Department and deputies from the Effingham County Sheriff's Office responded and located the man. The vehicle was later determined to have been reported stolen from Marion County, Illinois. According to authorities, officers attempted to restrain the man, and during the struggle, he produced a firearm. The firearm discharged, and the man was struck. He was taken to a local hospital and later transported by a helicopter to a regional hospital with life-threatening injuries. No one else was reported injured, and authorities described the incident as isolated with no continuing threat to the community. That is what has been publicly confirmed. There is also a great deal we do not know. Authorities have not said what made the vehicle appear suspicious, what behavior caused concern regarding the man, or why he wanted to speak with the pastor. We do not know whether church security knew that he was armed, what his intentions were, or exactly how the struggle developed. We also do not know precisely how the firearm discharged. Those details may eventually become public, but until then, there is no reason to fill in the blanks ourselves. What we can say is that church security noticed both a vehicle and a person who caused enough concern for them to contact law enforcement. That happened while no worship service was taking place. According to the church's published schedule, St. John's had an early service at a Christian education scheduled between services and another worship service at 10:30. The incident occurred during the period between worship services while Christian education was scheduled to be underway. That does not tell us who was inside the building or exactly what activities were underway, but it does show why the time before, after, and between services matters. A church does not become inactive simply because the final hymn has ended. People remain in the building, members talk in hallways, volunteers prepare classrooms, children move from one area to another, pastors meet with people. Visitors may arrive early for the next service, while others may come to the church looking for help, prayer, food, counseling, or just someone willing to listen. The building may be quieter, but it is not necessarily empty. In some ways, these transition periods can be more difficult to manage than the worship service itself. During a service, most people are gathered in one place. The safety ministry generally knows which doors are in use, where the congregation is located, and what activities are taking place. Between services, that structure begins to loosen. Some people are leaving while others are arriving. Team members may be speaking with friends or getting coffee or using the restroom, changing assignments, or preparing to attend the next service themselves. None of that is unreasonable. Safety ministry volunteers are members of the congregation too, and no one can remain at maximum alertness every second of the morning. But there is a difference between relaxing appropriately and mentally checking out. If everyone assumes the watch is over, no one may actually be watching. And that's why every church safety ministry should decide when its coverage begins and when it ends. A small church with one service will have a different plan from a larger church that may have multiple services in several buildings, but the basic question remains the same. During the transition periods, who is responsible for maintaining the awareness? And the parking area matters just as much. The official report states that church security noticed both the man and the vehicle. We do not know what made the vehicle suspicious, and we should not pretend that we do. But the fact that it was noticed at all is important because the parking area is part of the church environment. For many people, their first interaction with the church happens before they ever reach the front door. Families are unloading children, older members may need help getting out of their vehicles, visitors are looking for the correct entrance, people are walking across the lot while carrying bags or holding a child's hand or looking down at a phone. The same area is also where someone approaching the church first becomes visible. That creates an opportunity for observation before a person reaches the building. Watching the parking area does not mean treating every unfamiliar vehicle as a threat or assuming that someone is suspicious because they're new. Churches should expect unfamiliar people. We should want new people to come through the doors. The question is not whether we recognize someone. The question is, what are they doing? A visitor looking for the correct entrance is different from someone repeatedly circling the property. A person waiting normally in a vehicle is different from someone closely watching the building for an extended period. Someone walking toward the front door is different from someone attempting to access an area that is normally restricted. No single behavior automatically proves anything. Context matters. Observation is not an accusation. It is simply the process of noticing what is happening and deciding whether something deserves additional attention. Sometimes that means continuing to watch. Sometimes it means letting another team member know what you noticed. Sometimes it means offering assistance and seeing how the person responds. Or maybe it means the situation might justify involving church leadership or even law enforcement. In the Effingham incident, the confirmed action taken by church security was contacting police. That is significant because safety ministry members are not investigators. Their role is not to prove a crime, determine someone's motive, or conduct an interrogation. Their role is to observe, communicate, protect the people entrusted to them, and request help when a situation exceeds their responsibility or training. Police later determined that the vehicle had been reported stolen. The church security member did not need to know that before making the call. What mattered was that something had already drawn the attention and been communicated. Earlier observation creates options. Again, we don't need to know what would have happened if police had not been contacted, and we should not pretend that we do. But we do know that law enforcement was already involved before the firearm was discharged. For the church safety ministry, this incident did not begin with the sound of gunfire. It began with something being noticed. That is worth remembering because discussions about church safety often start at the worst possible moment. We talk about what to do when someone begins shooting. We talk about lockdowns and evacuations and medical response and armed resistance. Those discussions are necessary, but they are only part of the work. Much of safety ministry happens before anyone knows whether a situation will become violent. It happens when someone notices a door that should not be open, or a person moving through an area that is normally restricted, or a vehicle remaining where it does not seem to belong. It happens when two team members compare what they have each seen and realize that the circumstances deserve more attention. Most observations will not develop into a serious incident. That is a good thing. The goal is not to find a threat every Sunday. The goal is to remain capable of recognizing a developing problem when one actually appears. That requires communication. A team member may notice something that feels wrong but decide not to mention it because he does not want to overreact, or he may assume someone else already saw it, or he may worry that he will sound paranoid. A healthy safety ministry cannot operate that way. Team members should be able to report an observation without immediately declaring an emergency. They should be able to say that a vehicle caught their attention, that a person asked to enter a restricted area, or that something about a situation did not seem consistent. That information can then be evaluated. Reporting a concern does not always mean confronting someone or calling 911. It simply ensures that the observation does not remain with one person who may soon become distracted, leave the area, or assume someone else is handling it. This becomes even more important when team members are changing assignments between services. One person may be leaving a position while another is arriving to take over. If something has drawn attention, that information needs to move with the handoff. A church does not need a complicated briefing system for this. It simply needs intentional communication. The report that the man wanted to speak with the pastor also raises another broader issue. Pastors should be accessible. People often come to churches when they are grieving or frightened or desperate, angry, homeless, struggling with addiction, or experiencing some other crisis. The church should not lose its compassion in the name of security. But compassion does not require the pastor to meet every unknown person alone in an isolated room without anyone else knowing where he is. When circumstances cause concern, the church can still offer help while taking reasonable precautions. The pastor can be notified before access is granted. The conversation can take place in a visible area. Another staff member or safety ministry member can remain nearby. That is not hostility, it is responsible stewardship. To be clear, I am not saying that St. John's did or failed to do any of these things. We do not have that information. This is simply a general lesson raised by the circumstances described in the official report. There may be more information released about the incident in Effingham. The investigation may eventually explain why the man came to the church, what caused the initial concern, and exactly how the confrontation with law enforcement unfolded. When those facts become available, they can be evaluated. Until then, we do not need to exaggerate the incident to learn from it. The confirmed facts already remind us of something important. The responsibility of a church safety ministry does not exist only while the congregation is sitting in the sanctuary. The watch continues while people are arriving and while they are leaving. It continues during the time between services. It extends to the hallways, classrooms, entrances, and parking area. That does not mean every volunteer must remain on duty all day. It means the ministry should have a plan for those periods instead of simply assuming somebody is watching. Take a look at your own church this Sunday. When the service ends, where does a safety team go? Does everyone gather in the same place? Is anyone still watching the entrance, or can anyone see the parking area? Who remains aware while the pastor is speaking with the visitors or while the families are walking to their vehicles? These questions do not require expensive equipment. Cameras can help, radios can help, access control systems can help, but none of those things replace a person who is paying attention and willing to communicate what he sees. The incident at St. John's Lutheran Church did not begin from the safety ministry's perspective with church security responding to gunfire. Based on what was publicly released, it began with someone noticing a vehicle and a person who caused concern, and then contacting law enforcement. We do not know what they saw or what they believed might happen. We do not know what would have happened had they made a different decision. But what we do know is they were paying attention during a time when no worship service was taking place. That is the lesson. Vigilance is not fear or paranoia. It is not treating every visitor as an enemy. Vigilance is remaining aware of what is happening around you, recognizing when something does not fit the circumstances, communicating clearly, and knowing when to request help. The service may be over, the sanctuary may be emptying, the music may have stopped, but until the people entrusted to us are safely on their way, the watch is not finished. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Sanctuary Peacemakers. If today's conversation added value, be sure to tune in next week as we continue equipping and encouraging those who serve and protect houses of worship. A special thanks to Haley Jones for granting permission to use her song Not Today as our introduction, and to Leslie Jones for allowing us to use the song Sound Mind as our outro music. As always, y'all stay safe and y'all stay blessed.